y'all, welcome back to another video. My name is Christina. I'm a mom of one and I love the baby whisperer, Tracy Hogg. So a lot of times I talk about her book and things like that. So today we're going to be talking about this idea and concept from her book. It's called The Baby Whisperer Solves All Your Problems, and that concept is routine busters. Now this is one of the hardest obstacles to get over, especially when you're starting a routine with your child for the first time, and it kind of totally depends on your habits before you started the routine. So a routine buster is something that comes up in the middle of your day and interrupts your routine and completely throws it off track for the rest of your day. Now, it is important to keep in mind that we should be structuring our day around our baby. We should be accommodating them in every single way we possibly can and not trying to make them have to fit into our life. Our babies are weaker, they're more fragile, they need more help, and so that's why we need to meet them where they're at instead of making them come and meet us where we are at. And this really depends on your baby's age. It also depends a lot on their temperament as well, but particularly with age, your baby can only handle so long of a wake window at a time. They need a certain number of naps. If they're eating solids, they need to be getting meals in. And if they're older, those things are still important as well. They need to make it to bed on time. They need to not miss naps, and they need to be eating on a solid schedule. So we always want to keep in mind when we are planning our day that we should be leaving room for the things that are important, like naps and eating, bedtime routines, little rituals throughout the day that just help our children get ready and follow us along for the rest of the day. Even things like just putting on our shoes to go outside. We can't rush those things. We have to allow time for them. Now, routine busters aren't always bad. Sometimes they're completely unavoidable, and they usually are the culprit, and especially when they are unavoidable, we usually know that they're the reason that our child might be having a harder time that day is because of this thing that's come up in the middle of the day. So for example, if you go to church on Sundays, that is a huge routine buster. At least for us with our daughter, our church service starts at 10 a.m. on Sundays, and that happened to be right at the time she was supposed to go down for a nap when she was about 9 months or so. And so our whole day was just thrown off because of that. We had to kind of readjust everything in order to make sure that she got her nap and that she was well fed and well rested and that she could actually go to church with us. Like, we're not going to get a babysitter every single week for that. So there's routine busters like that. It could be something even just like going to daycare once a week, being with a family member once a week, or multiple times a week as well. But it can just be little things like running errands, going to restaurants, going out with family, being on vacation, doing big trips, things like that we should be more aware of. A lot of times we're not. Like, a lot of times we think that we're just going about our day and we're running errands and we're getting our to-do list done, and we're not giving any mind to if this is actually beneficial for our child and if we're helping them with their day by doing these things. So if you know that routine busters are often an obstacle for you, I came up with a few questions that you can kind of ask yourself to figure out if you do need to manage your routine busters better. I do think some children can handle more outings and more errands than others, so just be aware of your child's particular age and temperament as you follow along with this video. Number one, ask yourself, are you following your baby's age-appropriate routine, or are you just following your own routine? Are you structuring their wake time around your wake time, or do you just kind of let them do kind of whatever they want, or you get them up whenever you get up even if they're sleeping, even if that's not good for them? Are they being fed at appropriate times, appropriate intervals throughout the day, or are you only feeding them when it's convenient for you? And are you letting them have time to play and have time for activity, for independent activity, and not just throwing them in a car and running them around all day, or taking them somewhere where they need to behave in a certain way, things like that. Just be aware of the routine you're following. Are you doing things you need to do during your child's naps, or are you making them lose a nap so that you can do something that you want to do? whenever a nap does coincide with an event or an activity, you might even need to reconsider doing it at all. And if you do think it's important to go to that event or activity, then definitely consider rearranging your calendar or getting a sitter or just doing something to accommodate your child's needs. Number 2 is your day spent mostly out of the house. Now this is hard, especially for parents who work at home and may have to take their child to a daycare or preschool, but that is a huge routine buster. I have never taken my daughter to preschool or daycare or anything, but I actually have several friends who have worked for daycares and preschools, especially with smaller children, and it seems like it's almost near impossible for them to follow a routine. And there's a natural rhythm and a natural flow of the day as it goes on at daycare or preschool, but it's never going to be the same. And if another child is having an off day, that's going to affect your child. There's just so many factors and so many things that can come up that will affect your child that you don't even know about while they're there. So if they're not spending that time at home in a more controlled and regulated environment, then they are more likely to have an off day and to have something bust up their routine when they get home. They may have a more difficult time getting ready for bed or eating at dinner time or staying asleep at night. And if you don't take your child to preschool or daycare, then ask yourself, why am I out of the house so much? It can suck to be home all day, but it's really good for our children. Obviously, we should get outside and have fresh air and run around, but being home is your safe space. It should be the place that your child knows the best. And if you find yourself going from activity to activity, to event, to errand, constantly, like you can't stay home at all, then just know that your child might be confused about where their home is, where that comfortable space should be. They should have a go-to place that they can rest and that they can feel comfortable in and know the rules and the boundaries. And if everything is constantly changing, they're going to have a more difficult time adjusting and adapting. Number 3, do you find yourself deviating from routine during sickness or travel? Travel is a given. There's going to be lots of routine deviation. I actually do have another video that I've posted about how to travel with a routine. We've done it lots of times, but the goal is to get back to the routine as fast as possible. And while I travel, if I'm not traveling just alone with me and my husband, I make it very important to our family or to our friends and the people we're traveling with. I make it known to them how important it is to me that my daughter stays on a schedule while I'm traveling. And there's obviously an adjustment period, especially during a long flight or if you're changing time zones and things like that. So you should be gracious with yourself, but don't go for a 2-week vacation and during those 2 weeks just go totally crazy, off the routine, drop everything you know, and then you're gonna have a more difficult time when you come back readjusting to your normal routine. Your child is going to be way off during the travel, during the trip, and they're gonna have a harder time getting back on the routine. And if you travel often and frequently and you do trips all the time, that can explain a lot of the hardship that your child might be having with adjusting to being home and adjusting to being on the road. Even if they're kind of like a pro at it, they still are gonna have a difficult time, and you're not gonna be able to keep your routine if you're constantly changing environments. When it comes to sickness, I don't think that there's any room for routine deviation. Obviously, children need more sleep when they're sick, so longer naps, earlier bedtimes are great. But we still have to keep in mind that our children need to be up and awake for some time during the day. And we need to keep in mind that they need to sleep in their own bed. If you pity your child so much that you start co-sleeping with them while they're sick, then that's gonna be difficult to break that habit when they're actually feeling better. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever let your child sleep with you or anything when they are very sick. Just be aware of how your routine will be affected, even if to you it's just a one-time thing. To them it might not be. So you have to have really clear set boundaries. I am pro medication. When my daughter is sick, I give her medicine so that she sleeps better. That's important to me because I don't want to put her down and worry about her not having a good night of sleep. But if you don't want to give your child medication and they're not sleeping well, then you might need to compromise on medication, but try not to compromise your routine as a result of that. You can go to your child, you can go and sleep in their room, but don't bring them into your room. That's an important thing Tracy Hogg always talks about. I love that idea. I would have never thought of that, honestly. For when my child comes to me in the middle of the night, I'd be like, yeah, sure, climb in bed. But that's not good to do. You go to them because that's where they're supposed to sleep. And you can be gentle with them and slow, and you can help them and be there by their side. But then you go back to your room when that's over and they're comfortable. You've helped them to be comfortable in their own bed, in their own room at night. Overall, when it comes to deviation from routine, because of sickness, travel, any other reason, if you expect at least a little deviation or a temporary thing, just make sure that it stays temporary and do what you can do to make it not become a permanent thing. Number 4, is your baby engaging in age-appropriate or temperament-appropriate activities? So those errands and things that you might be going to during the week, are those good for your baby? Does your baby enjoy going to story time at the library? Is that something good for their temperament? Or would they rather run around at the park? Does your baby like going to music class when they're 3 months old? Or would there be a better, more quiet environment that's suited for them and their wake window at that age? Just ask yourself, are these activities that you're engaging in that are possibly ruining your routine, are they even good for your child? Are they even something that your child would enjoy? And maybe it fits into your routine perfectly, but it's not something that fits into your child well. So something that I've learned is that my daughter has a really difficult time in waiting rooms. So I think that I could go get my car fixed and wait there with my daughter for an hour, and I can't. I figured that out the hard way. And that seems like something fine because I just plan it around her naps and plan it around the meals, but it's not something that's good for her temperament. She cannot be enclosed in a room like that. I need to, when I do that, or if I ever have to wait for a long extended period of time somewhere, I have to take her somewhere else and I have to do something else with her. We can't just sit in a room and wait. I figured that out. So if there's something that you're taking your child to and they're misbehaving, they're acting up, they're not doing very well, then I would highly recommend you question whether or not that thing is good for them and come up with a plan that is adapted specifically to them. Number 5, are you making time for rituals? So it's not just about naps, it's not just about bedtime, it's not just about meal times, but it's about the times leading up to those as well. Do you come home from errands constantly and just throw your child in bed and expect for them to fall asleep? Are you rushing them through their dinner time and their breakfast time so that you can get on the road and go somewhere after? Are you giving time for them to transition between activities? That's really what a ritual is. The most popular ritual is obviously the bedtime ritual. And that's been something that I've been trying to put more care and attention into with my daughter, is a slower, more relaxed, more paced bedtime ritual that helps her actually get ready for bed. And there are some evenings where we do have to come home pretty quickly and it's past her bedtime, but I would rather, even in that time, take 5 more extra minutes to not rush her into bed. And so even if I am deviating from my routine a little bit, I am still just going to take that time to allow for the ritual to prepare my daughter for bed. I know I'm driving her home to get her to bed, but she doesn't know that. And when she gets home, she might be exhausted, but she still needs time to transition from, oh, I was just at an event, then I was in the car, and now I'm home. Oh, and now it's bedtime. That's a lot to handle at once. So just make sure that you're leaving your children time to transition between events and activities. And even if you are doing something regularly that your child enjoys, that works well in their wake window, just give them time to adjust to going to there and adjust to coming back from there. So yeah, that's just 5 questions I put together just to ask yourself if the routine buster that you might be dealing with is actually helpful for your child, if you should keep it or not. I would never say to never do routine busters because they come up. They're unavoidable, and obviously we want to avoid them as much as we possibly can, but there are just things here and there, especially my example with church on Sunday. That's just going to be something that for us it's just way too important for our family to miss, so we're not going to miss it. We're just going to figure it out. And that makes things a little more difficult, but for us it's well worth it. Anyway, I hope this was an encouragement to you. I really want to stress that I'm not anti-routine buster. They happen, and it's our job to make sure that we get back on track with our routine as quickly as we can afterwards, so that a busted routine doesn't become a normal routine. And that's important to me because I love the predictability of having a routine, and I think all children have a love for predictability as well. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or comments, or if you have any ideas for topics that I can talk about later in other videos. And go ahead and subscribe so you can stay updated on when new videos are going to be released. Thanks for watching!